In January 1990, the economy of the Soviet Union resembled a dumpster fire. We now know that only 18 months later, the entire communist regime would collapse. But at this time, the USSR seemed like a tantalizing target for Western companies. Companies eager to capture the market of nearly 300 million people, most of whom who had never even tasted a burger, let alone eaten a fresh banana. McDonald's became an icon of these reforms by opening its first restaurant in Moscow in January 1990, with Pizza Hut following just a few months later. By the end of the year, a maybe unexpected name would pop up in Moscow: Sega, who produced this, a Master System 1 variant designed entirely for the Soviet market. Now, while it looks mostly similar to what you expect, inside it's an entirely new PCB revision designed to work with Soviet televisions. This is the story of the Soviet Sega Master System. There were some big upsides and a few small downsides, like crippling Soviet bureaucracy, working out how happy comrades could actually afford your product. Then you had to figure out how to convert your profits back to foreign currency because the ruble was essentially worthless. And it would help if you became personal friends with great leader Mikhail Gorbachev. What else could be easier? Now, I myself live in the country of Estonia, which was part of the Soviet Union and only became re-independent in the second half of 1991 when the USSR collapsed. So I knew of a retro game store in Riga, Latvia, that's the country just below Estonia, and I was looking at their website one day when I saw that they had a Master System 1 for sale for 50 euros. Now that was a little bit more than I wanted to pay, and the website only showed a stock picture of a Master System 1, but they did promise next day shipping. Upon getting my console 5 days later, I eagerly opened the package and my excitement quickly turned to confusion and a bit of disappointment. It looked legit, but somehow it didn't feel right. I thought maybe it was a knockoff or a clone system, but the case was really good. Then it sort of dawned on me, hold on, where's the card slot? And why does this system only have RF out? And for that matter, why is there no reset button or power light? Well, then I started to Google. The model number is MK3096-19, and this was produced by Sega specifically to be sold in the Soviet Union starting somewhere around the end of 1990 and ending, so I presume, when country fell apart in late 1991. From what I can tell, no one knows exactly how many of these units were produced, although estimates range from 20,000 down to only 2,000 units. My online research has shown only 6 instances of this Soviet model online. The highest serial number that I have found is 1276. Now, the serial number of my unit is 301, and I presume this means this was the 301st unit produced. The power seems to be 9 volts center pin negative like every other Master System console. We can see from the front there is no card slot. Sega cards had been discontinued in 1987. The power light and reset button are missing, presumably also for cost savings. The Soviet TV standard used a variant of SECAM, which is a color encoding like PAL or NTSC, but it's its own third thing. And this SECAM RF was all the vast majority of TVs would have offered. So keeping this in mind, removing the AV out plug seems to be another cost-saving measure by Sega. By this time, Sega was still making regular Master System 1s in Europe, and the Master System 2 had been released in the US, so this is all a bit weird. When you fire it up, you see that the built-in game is Alex Kidd, as our famous blue friend Sonic didn't show up until late 1991. This system runs at 50 Hz and plays all of my PAL games. Unfortunately, I don't have any NTSC games to try out. As much as I can tell, this works like any other Sega Master System. In the package I received, there was an external RF switch and one Master System controller. Both of these items have standard Western model numbers, and I have no way to know if they came with the original system or a later seller just bundled them in. It's believed that this console was sold with a standard PAL box with English on the front and then multiple languages on the back. Although we do know that the manual was translated into Russian, and I am informed that it's a pretty high quality translation. I asked the seller from Riga where he got this unit, and he didn't seem to know anything about its special heritage, only that he got the unit in 1997 in Berlin, Germany. How this unit got to Berlin is anyone's guess, but it's reasonable to think that one of these units could have wound up there. In the Soviet Union, you didn't just walk into a store and buy what you needed. In 1990, Gorbachev's glasnost was opening up the country's economy, but this was not trickling down to your average Ivan and Olga in the street. It's difficult to nail down any firm information, but this unit was most likely sold in a special electronics store in Moscow where you could buy imported goods like this. But only if you were the right kind of person and you were paying with the right kind of rubles or foreign currency, which was illegal at the time, but also kind of allowed. It was a very weird time. Added to this, even getting access to these import electronic stores would have been limited to high-ranking Communist Party officials and other well-connected members of society. While some of these people may have had an income comparable to those in the West, there just wasn't enough people with this status to make this a profitable market for Sega. Or who knows, maybe Gorbachev liked to stay up all night and just eat McDonald's and play Alex Kidd on his Master System and drink Pepsi and just soak in that good perestroika feeling. I mean, that's pretty much what I do on a Saturday night in 2021. Unfortunately, I couldn't turn up any information about how much this would have cost if you actually had the means to buy it. From what I'd led to believe about the economy of this period, the prices would have been roughly equal to regular Western prices. Now, it's no secret that consoles are often sold at cost price or even less, so Sega might not have had much room to reduce the cost anyway. If you were a Soviet citizen allowed into one of these stores, you generally were not poor, but the Sega Master System still would be considered a very expensive product compared to Soviet-made goods. As it turns out, these stores only ever stocked the base Master System with the one built-in Alex Kidd game. As far as I can tell, no extra games were sold locally in the USSR. This means that if you wanted to play games on your new Soviet Sega Master System, in addition to everything else that I've explained, you needed to have a relative who was able to travel abroad to, say, Germany or Finland and buy you those games. And they still would have been paying full Western prices. One game would have been about half a month's salary. So I hope you're starting to see why this product failed in the Soviet Union. It just cost too much for regular Soviet citizens to be able to afford. Now, if you come from a former Soviet Union state, you probably have those yellow Dendy cartridges at the top of your cupboard. Now, while these became super popular. Steepler, the company behind them, didn't introduce the Dendy until 1992. That's a good 18 months after Sega's attempt. I applaud Sega for having a go in 1990 and trying to establish themselves in a new market, but the odds certainly were stacked against them. As much as I can tell, there isn't much information about this Soviet Master System out there. There's a few forum posts, pictures scattered around on different blogs. I would like to contribute. If you can point out to me in the comments where I should be uploading pictures of the PCB and information about the parts and the chips that are on there, please do. I want to add it all. I want to contribute this to the general knowledge that is out there about the Master System. Thank you very much for watching. This is my second video, and I really enjoyed doing this more history-oriented video explaining why Sega might have made this console and how badly it would have failed in the market. I've got another video coming up. We're going to dive a bit more technical into what is the SECAM standard and talk a little bit more about what's happening on that PCB. Thank you very much. See you next time.